I will make.
Then can I call you later and figure out how to do this for
Absolutely.
my afternoon session?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thanks.
You got it. Bye.
Bye.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Sorry, this is my first time being a monitor and I had a little confusion this morning. Anyway, I'm Sherry. I'm going to be your session monitor. I will be monitoring attendance and your participation. If everybody is familiar with Zoom, if you can put any questions for me in the Zoom chat. If you don't know how to do the Zoom chat, just unmute yourself and ask me and I will walk you through that. If you have any questions during this session, if you could please put them in the chat and I will relay those to Kwana. This session is being recorded. There's also a closed caption feature for, the closed caption feature just came on. So you can turn it off if you need to. Or you can hide it if you need to, sorry. Kwana, did you have any handouts for today?
I do not, as long as I have the capability to be able to share my screen.
Awesome, okay.
I'm good there.
So no handouts. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce the session. This is Nurturing Staff During Stressful Times. Here is our host, Kwana Bronow. Did I say that right?
Bronow.
Bronow, okay, good job. And this session goes from 10:15 to 12:15. So without further ado, here's Kwana.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you, Sherry, for being gracious enough to open up and meet us. I have a lot of space and grace because I could make some mistakes myself, so I understand how it is tough to kind of get going and get things started, especially for the first time. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for the introduction, Sherry. So I am not quite sure of what the 4C expectations are. I guess I should have gotten a little bit more clear, but I would love to see some faces and some energy. Are you all, I see only a couple of faces and a lot of people who do not have their videos turned on. So I'm going to ask that you, unless Sherry guides me in a different direction, I'm going to ask that you all be willing to open up your screens. It's going to be an interactive and engaging conversation, and I'd love to get some face-to-face energy. So thank you for those who've already done so. And I am hopeful that the others of you are working to get that taken care of now so we can have an interactive session. There are several people in the waiting room, Sherry. Should we let those people in?
I sure can. Oh, there. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of people up there. So I don't want to get started until we have at least the bulk of everybody in. Looks like we got.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to.
Let's see. I can do it from my end. It looks like it's going to let me. So I just admit.
Oh, I got it. Okay. Okay, I got it now.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Oh, yay. This is a learning curve for me this morning. And I am going to turn my camera off so that I can do all the behind the scenes work. But Kwana is right. It is much nicer to do a training when you can see people's faces. So if you're able to, let's make Kwana's day and give her somebody to look to. Zoom has been difficult through this pandemic, and we like to see people. All right, I believe everyone is coming in now.
Yes, I mean to check.
Terry Sims, let's see, I don't know if you're muted or not.
I see her name. I see the name.
She wants to know if we can hear her, but I think she's muted. So if
Terry, try to speak out now. We'll let you know if we can hear you. Yeah, if you're talking, no, we cannot hear you. We cannot hear
and Lisa Conley says she can't hear us.
I will
I'm
go
gonna-
up a little bit on speaker. If the majority of you, if you can hear me, you can just either give me a physical thumbs up or in the reactions, give me a thumbs up. Okay, all right, it sounds like the bulk can hear, so it may be an
Okay.
issue. Whoever can't, maybe try going out and coming back in, because it,
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna tell her.
yeah, okay, all right.
Okay, so for those of you who just joined, I do apologize. I left you in the waiting room. This is my first time being a monitor. So, if you guys can put your names in the chat box, what I'm gonna do, I will be taking attendance a couple times during the session so that you get your credit. So if you can type your name in the chat box, that would be great. And that's how I will start attendance.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. We're starting a little bit behind, and I know that there are multiple sessions, and I want you all to be able to get to the next session or whatever that the second half of your day is. So I am going to get started. I am super excited to be here. My name is Kawana Bruno. I'm actually a former 4C employee, so I was honored to have the opportunity to come back to present at today's conference. Today's session is titled Nurturing Staff During Stressful Times. And I think that's a very relevant topic that most of you all can relate to, since our world right now is still in somewhat of a stressful time overall and in general. So what I will do is I will go ahead and start the PowerPoint. I'm going to share my screen and ask that you guys kind of follow along and engage. For the most part, we will kind of have you muted unless you're speaking and engaging, but it is an engaging 2 hours for us to be together. So I do want you to feel comfortable enough to answer questions, to provide feedback as we go throughout. So when you're speaking, please feel free to unmute and share your perspectives and your insight. It's a mutual reflective learning experience. I have experience and knowledge in the field, but I also appreciate and support the knowledge that you all bring to the field. I know many of you have been in the field for quite some time. So the knowledge that's shared today, I hope is actually reciprocal. So if you have things that you would like to add, feel free to jump in and join those as well. I do have my doors and windows closed, but it's trash day. So I hope you guys can't hear the trash trucks too loud, but I kind of hear them off and on, but they should be off the street here shortly. So without going on any further, I am going to head and start to share my screen from here. Again, my name is Kawana Bruno. I am your presenter for today's session titled Nurturing Staff During Stressful Times, and this is a 2-hour Ohio approved session. Our learning objectives for today are pretty basic and include 3 simple objectives. We're going to talk about and list the causes of stress for some early childhood education teachers, identify skills needed to be able to support those teachers, and define how to encourage a sense of wellness. Some of this will, I'm sure, be information that you might have heard before. It might be repeat, but I'm hopeful to be able to layer that with some additional knowledge, some additional ideas and strategies that you guys may be able to try. And like I said earlier, we are obviously living in a stressful time. And so I think it's important for us to be mindful of that. And for our teachers to be present for the children, we need to be present for them. And so taking care of our teachers is essentially extremely important so that they are their best selves and that they show up and are able to properly care for and provide quality supports for our children. Today's agenda, again, we'll talk about some causes of stress for teachers. We'll identify some additional causes of stress, critical need for support, talk about supervisory skills, a sense of wellness, a culture of wellness, and then we'll open it up for Q&A because I want to be sure to be able to answer and address any questions that you all might have. So I'm sure that you guys can come up with multiple things to help answer this question, but I just want to hear from you all, so you can feel free to unmute yourselves and kind of share. Like I said, I do want it to be somewhat interactive. I don't want it to get chaotic to where we're all talking at the same time, but for most of us, just kind of unmute and shout out. So what do you think currently would you say are some causes of stresses for our early childhood teachers? I'm not sure if we've got teachers in the room or administrators or a combination of the both. But I want to hear from you all in terms of what do you think are some causes of stress for teachers in early childhood education?
Understaffing.
Understaffing. We got 50 people here. That was, thank you for sharing. What else can you think of that might be a reason for stress amongst teachers?
Some behavioral issues in the classroom.
Behavioral issues. Okay, thank you. What else?
Dealing with the COVID and hand, foot, and mouth.
Yep, COVID, hand, foot, and mouth, and other communicable diseases. Thank you. Any
Too many
other
call-offs.
call-offs? Gonna kind of lump that in with the understaffing. It's maybe not exactly the same, but it is definitely a staffing issue. Thank you for
Not enough
that.
hours.
Tell me more when you say not enough hours.
That because of the ratio numbers, a lot of staff are being sent home early or not even
Oh.
coming in. So their
Gotcha.
pay as well.
Okay, so shortened hours. Okay, yeah, which creates a lack of pay. Thank you for that.
Mine are longer. My staff is working longer hours because there's not enough staff.
Yeah.
So I'm on the other end of the spectrum, which both can cause this added reason for stress, working extremely long hours or working shorter hours, which essentially affects your financial. Thank you for that. Any other thoughts or ideas?
I believe they're all good. The COVID, the understaffed, behavior, not enough support for the behavior.
We've seen a lot of really non-understanding parents lately as well.
Meaning, I don't want to read into it, language barriers or developmentally not receiving information.
Just like the stress of the day-to-day operations in the world that we're living in, and parents just really not having the realistic expectations of what we're dealing with on a regular basis.
Okay, so unrealistic expectations or lack of understanding from parents.
Yeah. It's like you lose a sock and we call state.
Okay, now I'm following you. Okay, thank you. All right. Well, thank you for sharing off. Some of you guys have obviously shared some of the ideas that are coming along next. I'm not sure why I'm not able to hit next, so we'll just go with that. So here are some things that I came up with. Some things are some things that you all listed. Some are some additional things that came by way of research and personal experience as well. So in addition to those things, which I added as, you'll see that later on in the slides, there's a lack of respect for the field of early childhood in general. You know, we are undervalued as a profession in general. That can sometimes cause stress to teachers. Some things that you guys might not have mentioned or talked about, and we'll dig a little bit deeper, are the training needs and requirements. A lot of it aren't things that we can change. You know, these are things that are mandated by our regulators, our funders, and understandably so, why we need to stay relevant and up to date on professional development. And at the same time, the expectation to having teachers to attend trainings, whether it's in the evenings or on Saturdays, or I'm not exactly sure how everybody's training process works, but I know that it's really difficult to have teachers and staff attend training during the typical 8 to 5 time because of the staffing shortages and the other issues that we're dealing with. So it typically tends to be in the evenings or on some Saturdays. And so while it is important that these trainings take place and it's part of the requirement, that can also add an additional level of stress to the teachers and the staff in the classroom, having to make the accommodations, whether that be, you know, with children or transportation or technology or, you know, whatever that may be for them. That could also add an added layer of stress. Some of these things aren't things that can immediately be rectified. We're going to work on some practical solutions towards the second half of the training. But I just kind of wanted to bring the light to it and have the conversation around some of the general ideas that have been outlined as stresses for teachers. Compensation. Compensation can be a concern for teachers as well. Again, going back to the lack of respect for the field, we know that it's not uncommon that we are grossly underpaid in early childhood education. I'm very grateful for the work of our advocators and different people throughout the state who are consistently working to kind of bridge that wage gap. But currently where we are now, you know, the wages are significantly lower. than they are in some of the other fields. And sometimes it feels really tough, to show up to work and do the hard work that we do. I love children and I love working with children. And working with children is hard. It isn't easy. You got to show up your best. You got to, pretend you're well sometimes when you're not really well. And so all of that playing into the fact and still being compensated at a fairly low wage, that can also be an added extra layer of stress. And sometimes it might not be a stress that you hear verbally. You may or may not, the teachers may be expressing, their lack of, financial concerns or different things, or it may just be additional burdens that they're carrying in that backpack that they don't speak about, that they show up in other ways, So just be mindful of that sometimes the stresses don't always show up on people's faces or in their conversation. It tends to show up sometimes in their actions. Financial concerns, which is kind of indirectly what a couple of you all listed, or at least one of the participants listed in terms of, being underpaid in general, even when you're working your fully scheduled hours. Now, coupled with the fact that your hours may be potentially reduced, that could bring about financial concerns if you're not bringing in the amount of financial resources that you need to maintain your bills or to maintain your lifestyle. That can sometimes add a level of stress as well. And then we're a pink collar society, right? We're a pink collar field, most of us. And I can't see everybody right now while I'm sharing my screen, but the last I looked, definitely lots and lots and lots of women here. I'm sure not everyone is a parent, but there's a good majority of working teachers and educators that are parents. Just like I said, caring for children is tough. It's tough caring for your own children and caring for somebody else's children. And so sometimes parenting balanced with the responsibilities of the day-to-day work and life in general, those are all things that sometimes that our teachers carry in this backpack of stress. They're sometimes invisible. They don't have these words written that they show up. I'm stressed about this, or I'm having this issue. They often tend to come out through conversations, through interactions, sometimes through snippiness or through lack of interactions. And so to some degree, we are working through challenges that are not maybe evident or vocally voiced that, hey, I'm having this issue, but this is a backpack of experiences that teachers are showing up with every day. And contrary to what history says or what the old cliche phrase says, is like, leave your backpacks at the door. Yeah, right. That isn't real. I'm not sure who made that up, but I disagree with that so far to the left that it is, you do have to find balance. You've got to find balance and be able to show up for your children. But the fact to say, forget about your whole life for this 8 hours and pretend that none of your problems or stresses or life exists for 8 hours, I don't think one can do that. And if there are people who can, I think they are few and far and in between. I think a lot of us have tried it. We try to fight that battle and just maybe block these things that I'm just going to be present and focused. And at the same time, we realize when we leave, we're picking up that same backpack at the door. So those issues are still there. So we've got to figure out ways to counteract them, how to work with them. And so I feel like we started on somewhat of a heavy note, talking about all of the challenges and things that are potential stressors, but I wanted to be able to lay the groundwork for where we go next, and some strategies, again, like I mentioned, to help maybe get over that barrier, or just being mindful of these stresses. And then again, some things that we may be able to do to combat some of those stresses or issues. You all mentioned this already, lack of staff and teacher turnover. That affects everybody. It affects it from an administrative standpoint. It affects the teachers that are still there, who may have to work longer hours or harder shifts, or skip over lunch breaks, or be really creative in their shifts and work from open to close and take 2-hour lunch breaks, so somewhat of a split shift. I've seen all kinds of things, and understandably so. We are working to survive right now, to get through the times in which we are. But I think this is just some things to kind of be mindful of. So when people are showing up not their best, or you see a shift or a change, there's a lot of things that are going on in the world and life in general that kind of can add to this backpack. So again, what can we kind of do to counteract some of that, to lessen the burden, so that these teachers can continue to show up to be their best and do well for children? So in addition to all those, there's some added stresses, like we wear a mask or no mask. We're in a fight with the parents. If we put a mask mandate in, is it gonna tick the parents off? Or what is it gonna do? It's gonna make some happy. It's gonna take some other ones off. Where do we find that? The threat of exposure for ourselves and safety. And we won't get into, the vaccination, those who have chosen to be vaccinated, those who have chosen not to, the debacle between the two sometimes, threat of being exposed ourselves and the fear for our safety and the safety of the children. And simply the uncertainty of daily changes. Things are changing from day to day. There's some new rules coming down the pike, October 29th. So y'all be mindful of those too. We won't get into that, but things are ever changing. And so we know that things are ever changing. Change is consistent, change is inevitable. Sometimes change is hard, and yet we still don't get a chance to run away from it. We got to knuckle up, we have to deal with it, and we have to embrace it, and we've got to figure out strategies to be able to combat that feeling of anxiety potentially that might come along with those changes, and get on the other side of that and kind of look at the bright side and say, what does this change look like for me on the other side? So I have kind of said a lot. I'm going to stop and just take a quick pause before we jump back over to the PowerPoint and just ask for any thoughts or reflections that you guys might have to point, or are there additional things that you potentially came up with that maybe weren't listed from your peers or from the list that I came up with, or anything else or thoughts or reflections that you have so far?
Kwana, somebody put in the chat box dealing with Okra and getting background checks so they can start subs or new teachers is very frustrating.
Yes, I am familiar with that process from a personal level myself. And again, like I said, some of these things are just like, what are the ways and things that we can do to be strategic and get around that curve? And so some of the things that I have encouraged in some of my coaching interactions and conversations while we wait, because essentially inevitably right now, I don't have a good solution that takes away that weight, right? They're probably understaffed, much like many of us. They're doing the best that they can with who they have and with what they have. So in the meantime, what kinds of things can we be doing? And I understand that they cannot be with the children until those background comes back. And I'm in full support of that for the safety of our children. Can they begin doing some orientation? Can they do their online Okra trainings and the other parts that to have them equipped and ready to go, when the actual background check comes through? So I think ways of maybe being creative. Can they take the first aid and the CPR and, every potential thing that can be done ahead of time? Can you begin working on their professional development plans or their goals or different things so that when that background comes through, you've already crossed all those other I's and dotted all those T's and you're ready for that employer to go. So I know that doesn't negate the wait time. Like I said, I don't have a good answer in terms of how to get around that. I don't think there's an easy workaround, but I think we just get ahead of the curve and try to do as much as we can to have that person prepared and ready to go when the actual background check comes back.
I think something that they might not have mentioned is the delay in some of our supplies and our things that we need to run the school, like gloves and cups and paper. And it's really getting hard to get some things into the school that have to meet compliance right now.
I have, yes, and yes. I see the comment in there. Again, like I said, some of these things are naturally stressful, and I'm not trying to negate or pretend that I have the answers how to combat some of these issues. I think we just continue to be diligent. We're patient. We give space and grace in that event. I understand that money and cost is an issue. Maybe looking at multiple vendors is the word I'm looking for. Looking to have multiple vendors. And so that if you can't get it from this place, you can get it from another place. Just kind of trying to stay ahead of the curve, because I think this national employee shortages is affecting every entity. I was expecting to have some things delivered and things are just on delay. They're like the truck drivers and the Amazon, and like everybody is struggling and suffering through this. And so I think that we have to just continuously to be creative in our ideas, bounce ideas off of one another, maybe someone else on this call has a better idea or suggestions, to some of you all's questions and concerns that you guys have. Don't be afraid to network, ask questions. I tease and say, I don't like being the smartest person in the room. I find so much value in being around other smart people that have creative and good ideas. I utilize that network of resources on so many levels. And so don't minimize the importance of connecting with a neighbor, connecting with a business partner, an affiliate, an associate, an organization, so that we can rally around and support one another. And maybe somebody else is familiar or has a resource that you're not particularly familiar with.
And Kawana, if I can just interrupt for a second, I don't know if everybody heard the message, but can you please type your name in the chat box? I know we have like 51 participants and I only have 25 in the chat box. So that is how we are giving credit for the session. So if you could put your name in the chat box, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Yes, we want you all to receive your Ohio credit. So make
Yes.
sure that you do that, please.
And if you cannot go in the chat box because of the device that you're on, just make sure you unmute yourself and let me know you're here.
Is that the case for anybody who needs to do that? I'll take a pause and let you guys let Sherry know. Anybody who has to unmute and can't put their name in the chat?
A lot of people are using the app chat and not the Zoom chat.
Oh,
Correct. Yes, you can't use the Whova app to put your name in the chat box. You have to use the Zoom chat box, which is usually located at the bottom of your screen or maybe at the top. I'm not sure.
that is
But yeah,
helpful.
the
Yeah.
Whova app will not get your attendance to me.
That is helpful to know. I'm sure that's probably part of the issue that some people are popping it over there. So allowing for space and grace. That's why I keep saying with the vendors and with everybody and with us, we are figuring this out and it'll be fine. We'll get through it. All right. So is this the Zoom chat? I saw that. I think it is, but I'm gonna let Sherry handle that. I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen. All right. Where am I?
Yeah, Kwana, one person said she just doesn't have anything left in her bucket, so it's really hard to nurture others.
And we will talk about that. I'm gonna skip to this slide because this is very relevant to what you just said. You're absolutely right. I don't know who said that because it's again hard to kind of follow the chat and the PowerPoint at the same time. But you got to figure out ways to recharge your own battery. That is correct. How do you cope with stress yourself? I find myself sometimes wanting to show up and be present and do everything. And so sometimes life has knocked me down. I got so sick a couple of months ago. I had so many things on my to-do list. I was sick. I could not get out of bed. I didn't have COVID. I don't know what I had. It went away in about 48 hours. And I thought of all of the things I had to do. If this didn't get done, that get done. But on the third day when I got up, life still went on. Yes, I was a little bit behind. I didn't respond to a few people that weren't happy and I had to apologize for that. But what I figured out was life will go on. And I'm not saying fall down to your knees and get sick like I did. Heavens no, I hope nobody ever feels like that. But you've got to figure out ways to recharge your own battery. What does that look like for you? It can be a combination of different things. Not everybody is into physical exercise and yoga and different things. Whatever your vice is, your outlet. If it's gardening, if it's cooking, if it's spending time with family, if it's going for a walk, if it's reading a good book, if it's I am going to leave work at 5 o'clock like my scheduled time, whatever that looks like, you've got to find ways. And you're absolutely right. It does get really hard. How can you pour into somebody else with an empty cup? It's just unrealistic. You can't do that. Self-care is not selfish. Self-care is extremely important. Again, what does that look like for you? You got to have a network of support. You've got to figure that out because sometimes it's hard for other people to figure that out for you. So I actually want to just take a pause and ask you all to think about what do you do on a personal level that brings you joy? What do you do on a personal level for yourself that brings you joy, that fills your bucket, that gives you gratification? What do you do for yourself that fills you back up? And then I want to hear from somebody, five people at least, please. What do you do to fill yourself up?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. So what fills me up, I'm a grandmother and my grandchildren coming over on the weekends. It fills my bucket up to the very, very tip overflowing.
That is exciting. Do you make time? How often do you make time to be able to interact with them?
So normally they come over every Saturday because we do a whole, the family thing where you make food, you sit around, you talk. Family is like the root for everything. So whatever goes on for me during the week that might be stressful or might, have me down, once my grandchildren come over and we have that, that family gathering, it just rejuvenates me and it fills me up, because there's nothing more important than love and, care, people caring for each other. So that's what, fills my bucket.
And thank you for that. So whatever that feels like for you, and for Stacy, it was her family and be around family enough. If that is enough, that's great. You got to figure it out. And I'm glad that she was able to answer that right off the bat. It wasn't a thought process. And that's fine if you had to think about it, but I want you to be intentional and to think about it. Let me go through it. I see there's some things coming up down here in the chat. Weekend trips, spending time with family game nights, a gamer, liking to sleep, read books, going on weekend trips to go see my son. The things that fill your bucket, you got to do them. You just have to make the sacrifice to do them because it's so rewarding and it does tend to be able to get you through those tougher days. I understand sometimes you may not be able to make the trips to see if you have out of town people every, weekend or whatnot, that comes with some financial responsibility too. But at the same time, identifying those things that fill your bucket and actually being committed to doing that. Anybody else willing to share out verbally? Thank you for those who've shared in the chat. Walking the dog.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. I know for me, I try to work out a lot. So when I book sessions with a personal trainer, it's something that I can look forward to. Maybe I'll set it up at 5 a.m. before our program opens to kind of get my mind going, get my energy right, release some stress, or even I'll do a 7:30 session to help me let go of all of the stress of the day. So just having something like that to look forward to really helps me to reset, refocus, and get my mind together to kind of push through.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I wish I had the motivation to be up and out at 5 o'clock. I used to. I'm struggling to find it. So maybe I will find it through your testimony, Christina. Thank you for that. Terry, I wish you could talk. I'm not really sure why we can't hear you. I see that in the comment too, but I don't know why we aren't able to hear you. It's her computer. Okay. Well, feel free to chat to add it in the chat. We love to hear your input as well. Any other thoughts? All right. So go back to where we were. All right. So in order for us to get something different, we have to kind of do something different. So I want you to start thinking about, some of us have been in business for a very long time, and kudos to you all who've been able to weather the storm of early childhood, the ups and downs, the highs and lows over the years. But what we have to start to look at is the shift. COVID caused us all to shift in a way that we didn't necessarily plan to shift, but we figured it out. We adjusted. We're still adjusting because COVID is still around and we are still having to make lots of concessions and light up. And at the same time, I believe it allowed for a lot of us to take a step back and do some re-examining. So that we had to react pretty quickly. And so some of you all, I'm sure, had to update policies and procedures and mask requirements and that. But I'm wondering, when was the last time your staff policies were updated? So many things have changed, and we consistently talk about, I've been in the field for a long time, and it's a saying that I've said and other people have said, these kids sure aren't like they used to be. The kids now are not like the kids 20 years ago. You're absolutely right. So the strategies that we're using now, we need to be coming up with some new ones, because the one we used 20 years ago, they are not as effective as they were. There were some pieces that I believe are still effective, but there's a lot of transitions and strategies that we have to make to be able to adjust to the new sign of the times, the new norm for our. Okay. I think I got muted by the host, but I'm back. So this is, can you all hear me now?
Yeah, you just unmuted for a second. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what happened.
Okay, that's all right. So what we have to do is now go back and look at some of our policies and procedures and things that we are doing. I heard someone say working shorter hours, someone say working longer hours. When was the last time your staff policies were updated? We need a time now. People need refuel. They need refuel. They need an opportunity to be able to be appreciated. We are tired. You guys are essential workers. You've been essential workers on the front line of all of this for a long time. And I'm grateful for the hero pays and the different, the financial pieces that have come by way of that. But we got to start thinking about ways to support our mental health as adults. So are there policies and things in your handbooks, in your procedure that are specifically in support of teachers' mental health? That might not have been at the top of your radar 10 years ago when you created your policies and handbooks. I'm not saying that it shouldn't have been, but I think now for sure, life has shown us how important it is to care for our mental health, how to keep, why it's important to keep ourselves fueled and refilled for mental health purposes, for emotional purposes. And I don't think that we've been intentional to build that in as part of our normal practices. So we're doing that with children. We know it's important for children. Are we thinking about how important that is for adults? That's our responsibility to begin to change with the times and to readjust to our current new norm. So the same thing that we can't keep doing the same thing with children that we've historically done, we can't keep doing the same thing with staff that we've historically done. We've got to get creative. We've got to be willing to try something new. Try something new. Try something fresh. I'm skipping around on my PowerPoints because this is my brain works, but we're gonna go back. Here's some things to consider. Thinking about healthy habits, brain breaks for teachers. Do teachers even get breaks anymore? Staffing is really tough. And I know that it will take some creative strategies to figure it out. Just being able to step out and get a breath of fresh air for a few minutes. Well, we used to tease around about the cigarette smokers. We had a fake smokers corner because I don't smoke cigarettes, but when the smokers went out to smoke, I'm like, well, I'm going out to have a smoke break too without a cigarette because people need mental and human breaks. And we've gotten away from it. Life gets really tough, but those things are really important. So this isn't stuff that you guys have never heard before. This isn't genius. It's just a reminder of the importance of the small things that make big changes. Physical outlets, brain breaks, reflective supervision, teacher self-reflections and self-care, having those conversations with teachers, a reflective supervision. We're saying talk to the children, find out what's on their mind, get to know them, understand them, observe them, pay attention to them. But that has to be reciprocated for the adults too, because adults need reflections as well. They need supervision, they need self-care, they need an opportunity to talk through and walk through things. And I know that it's like, well, when do we have time to do it? Make the time now or deal with the consequences later. It's the same concept that we say with children. It's hard to get all the components of the day, but we know it's important. So it may be hard to get some of these components in, but we know that's important. We are wanting our teachers to stick around because turnover is real. That's not just in our field, it's everywhere. The employment market is really crappy right now. But we've got to encourage and motivate and create healthy habits in an environment that makes teachers want to stay. Let's talk a little bit about your current policies and procedures in terms of breaks, how they get breaks, do they receive breaks, are they working 10, 12 hours a day? 10, 12 hours a day working with children and being your best all day, every day, that's gonna wear you down after a while. So I think it's time for us to try something new, get creative with our strategies, the times, the breaks, the shifts. It's not a magical solution. What works for one may not necessarily work for somebody else. But these are some things I want to consider. So I'm going to kind of go back to the question, which where I started. When was the last time your staff policies were updated? I'm all ears. You updated it when COVID came. Was it COVID related, or what kinds of updates did you make? Was it just you have to wear a mask, you have to wash your hands more, you know, more what you have to do, or is there any additional supports in there to combat? Yes, there is more of what we have to do because of COVID. It just is what it is. Are we adding additional supports to help with that transition over? Thoughts? I'd love to hear from someone, a few people.
We added an employee assistance program, and that kind of taps the teachers into all kinds of free resources and resources to point them to resources for mental health, for legal situations. And then there's just all kinds of like TED Talks. And it was very vital during the lockdown. We had a lot of people tap into it, but that was one of the greatest additions that we added during this kind of unprecedented times.
And thank you for that. Again, which is why I say keep your networks and your conversations open with other colleagues. I am familiar with EAP from a former organization in which I work, but the Employee Assistance Program is a wonderful asset to add to your benefits so that the teachers have access to be able to reach out to professionals in different, you know, different areas like you mentioned for mental health and for legal or different things like that. So thank you for that.
We had to update ours about 2 weeks ago for one of my other programs. We had one of our teachers to get, she had caught COVID. So it was, do we pay her for the 14 days or do we not pay her? So we had to update our policy on that.
Okay. Yeah, and I can understand why there were probably lots of COVID related updates that needed to be made. Were these in support of teachers, or were these things that were just more work for the teachers? So we're adding more, we're not paying more, which again, that's just the nature of our field, unfortunately. How can we keep these people refueled? Building connections and relationship with people. Yes, it takes time, but the value and the importance of building those relationships is extremely important, even with adults. We can't lose sight of connections and relationships. That is the root of our businesses. That is the root of our work. That is the nature of what we do, the basis of who we are. And if we lose sight of the importance of building relationships with our people, we have to build that camaraderie. People got to want to come to work and to be there. And when everything is negative and going left and there's like no camaraderie, even when it's tough to be there and to show up, but I know I'm gonna show up and I got an ally that's gonna help me get through this tough day. Or luckily when I'm having a bad day, maybe she's not having one or he's having a better day. And so collectively, but build that work camaraderie and that work relationship. It's so important. And yes, it does take time. I'm not pretending that this is an easy fix to go back and happen. It takes work, it takes purpose, it takes intentionality. But if we want to keep our staff, if we want to build up this culture, this invested culture, we got to put in the work. We got to be willing to put in the work. I'm going to go back over to I think we've already talked about that. Again, like I said, making connections. This is a concept that applies not only between teachers and students, it's critically important amongst teachers and administrators. And so being intentional to create opportunities for this to happen. Business is all about relationships. How well you build them determines how well you build your businesses. It is work, guys. I'm not pretending that it's not work, but it's worth putting in the work. So start thinking about ways in which you can create a culture of wellness. I think this is a resource that is extremely underutilized. Where did I put it at? Sorry. Where did I put it? There it is. So how many of you all, when you see this, are semi-familiar? I'm not asking, have you read it? Do you memorize it? Do you, study it on a daily basis? But are you all familiar with the Ohio Core Knowledge and Competencies? Just give me a thumbs up in the reactions if you can. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Anybody's familiar with it? When's the last time you've seen it? I think it's an underutilized resource. Some people have, not everybody. I'm going to dig a little bit into a couple of pages that are outlined in this resource that can help to guide you as you do a self-assessment of your program and ways that you can build culture within your program, some things to consider. So this is a page out of that book. Where is it? I gotta go down. Sorry, I thought I had it all the way here. Here you go. All right. So we're gonna look at this is an Ohio CKC for administrators. All of you guys have it, or at least should have access to it. And it's just kind of a little bit of ways for you to start making sense, engaging some of your activity currently. Here it is, I think. Yeah. Here's what I was looking for, guys. Bear with me. Trying to move some of these things out of my way. Got a lot of stuff on my screen. Okay. So this is the core knowledge and competencies for administrators. So let's take a look at some of these self-assessing competencies that you all can consider as leaders. Recognizes significant internal and external crisis events and utilizes appropriate strategies to create an atmosphere of security and stability. Modifies interpersonal reactions based on others' learning styles, communication styles, beliefs, and biases. That one is huge, and we're going to spend some specific time around the second and third ones outlined on here. Modifies interpersonal interactions based on an understanding of own and others' learning styles, communication styles, beliefs, values, and biases. This brings me to a very particular conversation that I had the opportunity of having. Let me stop sharing here. Hold on. How do I stop sharing? Stop share. Yes. So when you talk about like this building relationships and building culture amongst the program, what do you know about your staff? How do you get to know your staff? And I want to be sure that I'm clear and not saying that there's a difference between professional and personal relationships. I am not insinuating that you need to become friends, dinner partners, drinking buddies with your coworkers and colleagues. Professional relationships vary greatly from personal relationships. So I do want to preface my question with that. How well do you know your staff? When it talks about the values and benefits of their programs, I'm sorry, of their values and benefit, of their values, and beliefs is where I'm going. What do you know about your staff? So when you're asking them to work over or work late or cover additional shifts and different things, and you feel like you're getting snapback or a negative response back, when really it could be, I've got things in the evening where my kids are going to extracurriculars and I can't stay over, or I can't adjust these hours, or I have legit reasons why, but it's this impression that she's not a team player. He just doesn't want to help. They've always got an attitude when I ask them to do something. What are their core values? When do you take the time to have and build a relationship with your staff, whether you have 2 staff or whether you have 22 staff? Relationships are important. We have a hand up and I don't know, Melanie, did you have a question or comment? I see a hand up from Melanie Wesley.
No, that was supposed to be my thumbs up, sorry.
Oh, all right, I got you. I just wanted to make sure.
I can comment. If we are ever in a situation where we have a need for a staff member to work more, longer than what they might typically work, we always ask, hey, do you have anything going on that you have to be out at a specific time? What's your evening look like? This is our need. So it's never just a demand of, you've got to work open to close because that's what we need. We try to take into consideration the staff and their family life and what they have going on.
Yeah, and people, when they feel invested or a part of something, they're likely more willing to make those sacrifices if they can. But if it's a very tenacious relationship or a very stressful culture environment, people are like, I'm getting out of here as soon as I get the opportunity. Don't ask me to stay. I'm not staying over. I'm not giving you a minute of extra time. I'm out of here. I can't stand to be here. And I want to dig deeper and better understand why that is. And sometimes it's the end of the road for some people. That could be just the reality. And I know that nobody wants to hear that in a day where we're already extremely short-staffed. But you got to have those conversations, remind people of their why, because we signed up for this for children. I don't think any of us signed up for this for the money.
No,
It is
can I
not.
just
Yeah, sure.
chime in? Making those personal connections. I had a young teacher. She recently got a flat tire, and I noticed that she kept coming to work and the tire kept going flat in the parking lot, just over and over. And I didn't want to embarrass her, but and then I overheard her talking about she didn't have enough dog food for her dog. So I just sometimes with my staff, I just surprise them with these little things that I'm hearing. And I got her dog food, and then she was able to fix her tire. And so I think those personal connections, are very important, and listening and not always talking.
Yes, yes. And then examining our own personal biases. Sometimes we have preconceived notions about people that may or may not be true. Do you have biases about the things that your staff may be experiencing? Whether you have judgment about, well, she's got enough money to get her tire fixed. She just got paid on Friday. That's not your call to make. Nobody knows what that personal situation is, whatever that he or she may be dealing with in their own personal life. And so I want to see lead from a lens of empathy. There's a line of accountability. I'm not saying lower the accountability. People are expected to be at work. They're expected to do their job, and they do have a responsibility to do that, which is why they get paid. And at the same time, there's always this healthy balance in finding out how to be able to support people so that they can do and be their best on their job. And people can't do and be their best when they have all of this stress or all of these added barriers that make them distracted from being able to be there and to be present for the children. Again, some of the world-related things, there's not a lot that you all can do about COVID. I'm sure if we could all make it go away, it would have been gone by now. So it doesn't make it that we can make it go away, but how can involving them in opportunities to give feedback about, guys, we're considering this mask mandate again, or whatever. I keep saying that. That's probably not the best one. Seeking input from your staff, making them feel valued as if their voices are heard. If it's program related decisions that they can chime in on, there's obviously times when management, leadership, administrators have to make rules without allowing for staff weigh in. But if there is something that they can weigh in, give them an opportunity to have their voices heard, whether it's for planning a parent meeting or a holiday celebration or whatever that looks like. Giving them an opportunity to be involved in a part of the process, it tends to make people feel more involved. Nicole, did you have your hand up? No, I think that was me. Okay. Any additional thoughts, comments, questions?
I just want to say, can you hear me?
You're a little bit low.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to say about my team. My team is awesome. We fill in when someone's not here. We if somebody needs a bathroom cleaned, then they be like, "Oh, I'll clean it for you," just so that we all work as a team. And during the interview process, that's the main thing that I ask is, "How are you a team player?" And then to be part of such an amazing team that we have here, not only are we help for each other, but I delegate a lot of things that I have to do because I'm an assistant director to them. I mean, I just have an awesome team, and just building those connections. I believe that you can be like a friend and also be their boss. That way you understand them and they understand you, but then they understand their role as well as being in an organization.
And I do agree that there can be across an inner cross section of both, where work associates do become friends. So I don't want to send the message that that's like a taboo or a bad thing. I also have seen, unfortunately, where the wires get crossed, and sometimes it gets a little tough for people to separate personal and professional. And so I think tread that water with caution for those of you who may not have had the experience of being able to establish healthy boundaries and relationships between professional and personal relationships. So that's a really good point, and thank you for that, Jody. Anybody else? All right. There's another question I kind of want to go back to, and it might step on a few toes, but I am just curious to hear from you all if this is something that you've done recently. Have you reassessed what your current family's needs are in terms of hours of operation? Not pushing for anybody to change their hours. I'm asking out of curiosity. I have seen lots of programs shift and adjust their hours in light of COVID to reaccommodate the fact that they're understaffed or whatever that needs look like. And I'm curious as to if programs have done an assessment to ask the families, or do we just like, well, we've always kind of been 6 to 6 or whatever to whatever. And so that's where we'll stay. So if there's anybody who has any input there, I'd love to hear from if you guys have done any assessment from your family of your program hours. Do you need the hours that you're currently open? Or is that something that you've just consistently done out of habit?
When we first came back from COVID, because we closed down for probably about a month and a half, we changed our hours temporarily. But then as soon as things started going back to normal, we had to go back to normal hours because of staffing.
Okay. When you say you had to go back to normal hours because of staffing, meaning because of what your families needed, or because, what do you mean because of staffing? I just want to make sure I'm clear.
So we had our typical hours are 6:30 to 6 p.m. During COVID, we actually changed it to 7 just because we had to make it work regarding staffing. And so when we went back to normal hours, 6:30, in order to make all the shifts work, the way that we operate our shifts, 6:30 was the best option because we got 6:30 to 2:30, those people trying to get all their hours, but still maintaining our service, it just flowed.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you for that input. Like I said, I'm just curious. There's no right or wrong answer as to how people have done and reassessed it. I know a program who actually changed their hours to end at 5 o'clock, and it was, for a variety of different reasons. And I thought, well, does this work for your families? And it obviously worked. You didn't seem to lose any families. So I was just curious. Anybody else?
We did. When we first came back after closure from COVID, we did shorten our hours based on the schedules of the parents. And then, we did open back up when all of the ratios opened back up, and we did do the parent survey. We try to get the parents to follow their schedule, but that's been one of our big challenges, where if a parent tells us that their drop-off time is 7:30 and their pickup time is 5. We have to really be diligent when they show up with their family of 4 at 6:45 and test our ratios. You have to let us know if you're going to alter from your set schedule that you have. So we did try to communicate with parents, and there was a need for us to stay open until 6 o'clock. We had a lot of families that don't work a shift where they're off in time to pick up by 5 o'clock. So we did, after the ratio changes shifted and we could open back up, we did open back up till 6.
Okay. Thank you for that. Then we've got another hand up, Gwendolyn. We can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
Yes. we had to change our hours because we were a 24-hour learning center. And by that, we had to go out of it. We lost our third shift as well as part of our second shift. So our numbers went dramatically down due to the COVID because we had to take in only the essential workers, which knocked out a lot of children coming into our learning center. So for me, we lost a lot. So I lost third shift staff as well as second shift staff. So right now we're just basically every other weekend, and our hours now are like from 6 a.m. And because of the staffing situation, I am pulling as the administrator, opening and closing. So that's our situation at this time.
And I think that we do have to adjust to temporary situations in the moment. That's what business owners do. That is what organizations do. And we also keep diligently working on a plan because a long-term sustainability, that isn't it. For you to have to work open to close, it's gonna lead to essentially burnout, you know, and humanly, those aren't sustainable teaching practices. Again, I understand, and I am totally not here to negate the decision that you made because you did what was best for your children, your families, and your organizations. So kudos to you. And at the same time, again, just reworking and reassessing, and whether it's, you know, continuing to recruit and to get additional staff or having to split shift, or you know your business a lot better than I do, so I don't want to have all any solutions or whatnot, but I will encourage you to be mindful of what practices can be systemic or long-term, or know that these are things that literally can only happen for a limited amount of time, with the mindset of we are working to solve and to figure this out long-term. So thank you for that, Gwendolyn. Stacy, I think you had a comment or question? No, okay, maybe that's my hands.
Kwana, this is Sherry again. You're irritating attendance person.
Oh, no,
I
you're
have
fine.
Katie Putoff, Patrice Abrams, Patricia Mentlow, and Sarah Collier. If you guys are here, can you either unmute yourself and say hi? Oh, I see. Okay, I see.
I'm here. I'm just in the car. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
Still here.
Patrice, okay.
I'm here too.
Patricia, okay.
Yeah,
Sarah,
I'm Patricia. This is Patricia Mentlow. I'm still here.
I'm so glad you're all here. Okay. And Kwana, some people put in the chat box that they have done parent surveys with, what are your needs right now?
Yes, and good. And that is what we're encouraging you to do, and not be afraid to make adjustments or shifts based upon that current need. Everything has shifted, so we can't be afraid to shift at the same time. And then sometimes we get so attached or married to the ideas of what it's always been, that we're not always open to new solutions or new ideas or trying something different, that we just try to make things fit and work when we really know long-term they're not sustainable and they're not going to work. So don't be afraid to shift, to change gears, to do something different, to try something new, even if it doesn't work the first time. What I'm saying is the same thing that I said before. If you got to try something different to get some different results. Everything in life is changing. There's lots of adjustments being made. And so don't be afraid to do something different. If it means changing your shifts, changing your hours, working with your parents, do those surveys. I see several people who've mentioned in the comments over here that they have sent out, like Sherry said, surveys to their parents and ask those questions. We are reduced ratio, 3 staff to cover 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. Yeah, absolutely worried about staff burnout. So what does that look like? And I've done some staffing solutions in the past, and I just try to get people to come up with different ideas. Consistency for children is important. I understand that, having that consistently. Also thinking about what it looks like to hire or connect with community organizations to have or utilize part-time staff. You have to have your qualified staff, you meet the several requirements, that all makes sense. Is it a reality that you have a part-time afternoon teacher making this up from 3 to 6? Again, that's still doing quality work with the children, but that teacher can go home on some days. If it's just 1 or 2 days a week, working from 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. all day with children is hard. We do what we have to do. We show up for the kids. And again, I commend those of you who are in the trenches doing this work every day. we are grateful for you. I am very grateful for you. I no longer have small children, but I know what it was like when I did, having to get to work, needing consistent childcare. And so I commend you all, but I also say be willing to try some unconventional strategies. Sometimes people are getting burnt out. Talk to your staff. Sometimes they have better ideas than you might think. You know, guys, I know you're working from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and I'm trying to figure out a solution to be able to make you not have to work so hard 12 hours a day. What do you think will work? This is what I'm considering. Do you think it will work? Can we, partnership with the YMCA? Can I recruit and get some part-time teachers potentially from, that, or somebody that's looking for part-time in the afternoon or in the evening? Don't be afraid to mix it up a little bit. Sometimes that's just what it needs to be. 2 teachers in a classroom, if, one teacher, I don't know, gets off early on Tuesday and Thursday, the other one on Monday and Wednesday, just those small perks. Sometimes it's just like, man, I don't even know what it's like to get off when it's light outside anymore. And the time is getting ready to shift. We're going to be falling back. So the days are going to get shorter. It's going to get dark, seasonal depression, all that kind of stuff. It's like real. It gets like, oh my gosh, it's dark. It's dark when I come in and it's dark when I leave out. That starts to get tough on some people, day after day and month after month. Be creative. I understand it's a staffing shortage out here. I'm not pretending that I don't know that. I work in that industry every day. I know how tough it is to get people, but I also know how we can be creative and modify things just a little bit. If it's just one day to lighten somebody's load, those little things matter. If it's just one time to have a conversation and just say, we haven't really talked in a while. I just want to know, how are you doing? How are you doing? What's going on? What are you looking forward to over the next 5 to 6 months? Let's change our language. Instead of having staff meetings, let's have staff events. Let's have staff celebrations. Simple, small things matter. I know some of you all are from different locations throughout Ohio, and here in Dayton, there's a lot of work around, our conscious discipline piece. And we talk about celebrations. Those small things, just shifting the atmosphere just a little bit, starting off meetings with celebrations. That's what we moved in a direction to where, we still have the agenda. There's things that we have to get to. But first, let's start off with celebrations. Like, what's good? What is good going on in you guys' life? And it can be from the smallest things to, I got a new lawnmower, I got a new puppy, to somebody bought a new house, to, I'm getting married, or my sister just got out the hospital. I'm really happy she's doing better. So just taking a minute of time to celebrate in the small celebrations of your staff, that could essentially go a long way. Recognizing your staff for things that they may have done well. It can be something really small, and it doesn't always have to be monetary. Perfect attendance is huge. A perfect attendance bonus, whether it's a snack, a pizza, knowing what they like, because you don't want to buy somebody a pizza who's getting up going to the gym at 5 in the morning. That might not be the best gift for her. But, getting to know people and finding out what it is that they do like, or saying, how's your workout journey going? I know you started going to the YMCA, how's that going? I'm not saying tell people like, oh, you're losing weight if you don't really tell that they're losing weight. Be authentic in your recognition, but say, I know that you started going to the gym. How is that working out? If your football season started or soccer season started for your kid, how is the season going? Just taking that extra minute to care enough to ask those questions, that goes a long way. It doesn't mean that the stresses of life don't still exist. COVID's still going to be here. Some people are still going to have financial crises and different things that you may or may not be able to control. But just that extra level of empathy, that's that small piece of conversation that I care enough to ask you those questions. I genuinely want to know, how are you doing? The special messages, recognition or a special messages, just a small, simple note, to somebody on their classroom computer or on their classroom door, or on their desk, or whatever is personalized, to that person that I acknowledge, I recognize something you did. I saw the way or you made me feel when or I heard the way you interacted with that parent. Those little small moments of gratitude, that's nurturing your staff. So it doesn't have to be anything super big on a financial scale to this big. The little small things, the daily recognitions and the weekly, kudos to you, pats on the back, but make them authentic. You know, nobody wants it to be a checklist. Like, I know she comes every Monday at 8 o'clock and tells me I'm doing a great job. That no longer feels authentic. This is just part of something that she does. And so don't make it so ritualistic or routine that it's expected and it doesn't feel natural. But taking the time to kind of make some of those real life connections to show people that we care, because human connections is where it's at. It's not just for the child and the teacher, it's for the adult to adult. And in the day and age where we are mindful of touch and mindful of germs and diseases or different things, human touch, like that's still a real thing. Even if it's a, you know, a fist bump, an elbow tap, or what it is, you know, making those human connections, some of the simple things that we ask and expect for adults to do with children, the power in that from an adult to adult perspective is huge as well. Greeting the staff when they come in, you know, good morning, Miss Such and Such. I'm glad you're here today. Have a good evening. You know, well, where are you going out for lunch today? Well, enjoy your lunch. It's a wonderful day outside. Those really small things go a long way. So just a quick pause to see what kinds of things do you do to recognize or acknowledge your staff's accomplishments? Are you sending out special messages, or are there things that you're currently doing anybody is willing to share? That again, these ideas don't have to come from me. I'm throwing out ideas and suggestions, but I'm sure there are some of you all who are doing really good things that others could benefit from. So please don't hesitate to jump in and share some cool things that you guys are doing as well.
I'd like to share.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Oh, hi. So some of the things we do around here, we have actually a notebook we keep in the office. It's called My Favorite Things. And what it is like we print out this paper that has what's my favorite candy bar, what's my favorite chip, just, you know, a few things that are on the paper, and then staff can go, they open the book if they feel like doing something kind, or we, you know, they buy their co-teachers a candy bar. Another thing we have is kindness, throw kindness around like confetti. So we have a board where we have the marker and we have the little note, you know, pads or the little note thingies, and they write down, you know, a kind word to each other. We really go bigger during Teacher Appreciation Week is a big deal around here because every day someone is getting something. So it's just the value of intrinsic praise to, you know, to a lot of folks more than anything. But when you get that little extra, you know, like that candy bar, you know, sometimes a Snickers can go a long way, you know, when you're having a hard day. And so those are just some of the things we do. And then just talking to, you know, your co-teachers, you know, if you see they look down, I mean, just the communication, you know, always, you know, we had a teacher one time, and to me, it's about a work family and having that, you know, that connection and bond. For instance, we had a staff member that had a health condition that she ended up going in the hospital, and she's actually, you know, kind of by herself. She doesn't have family. So the team got together, and on a Saturday, we went over and cleaned like her, you know, with her permission, like cleaned her, you know, apartment, helped her do, you know, things around the apartment, things she needed to get done, but she couldn't because she was in capacity, you know, in the hospital. So it's things like that, you know, we got to remember, you know, that we are a family and we got each other's back. So that's what, just a couple of things.
Yeah, that was helpful. Thank you for sharing. Just building that culture of community, that family, that school family, you know, again, something we talk about in the conscious discipline world, being a part of the school family. It's not the same thing. You know, people still have their families, but creating a sense of a school family is important. And I love that idea of, I don't know if you said it's all about me or something like that, just kind of getting some general information from the people so that you'll know. I teased my staff before, like they know food is my love language. And so, yeah, Snickers is like the bomb. A Coke, honey, I am in heaven. And so I'm trying not to, you know, eat as much bad stuff, but little small things like that, you know, you're right. They absolutely do go a long way. So thank you for that. Who else is willing to share out some things that you
We
all think
offer
about? Go ahead.
We offer room service every Friday. We started it back during Teacher Appreciation Week. It was one of the ideas that we found, and it was a hit. So we decided to keep it going. So every Friday they get a pop, a snack, and a chip delivered to their room, their classroom.
That is really cool, you know, and how you can customize that. Because with this, you know, chips, she might like these chips and this might like, but not that you paid attention, like, you know, that she actually got the things that I like, the things that I asked for. So I like that idea. Thank you for sharing room service. I'd never heard that before. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Francis again. What we do with our staff is, I think I'm overstaffed. I'm overstaffed, and I do count that as a blessing. I have part-time workers that do come into my center. The first part-time worker is the one that opens up. He and another person comes in from 6 to 8 o'clock. At 8 o'clock, all my staff come in from 8 to 4:30. And then I have 2 other part-time staff that comes in and relieve them all the way to 6 o'clock. So it kind of give them a chance to know that, okay, I'm gonna be in at this time. This is my set. And I make sure that it's a set schedule because I'm not in the classroom and I'm not up front. So if something breaks down, I can easily move into those spots. So I'm very grateful and blessed. I do have an excellent team. They awesome. They come in and do their job. Most of my staff are older. And I can say from 50 on up. I do have 2 staff that are like 30 and 35. And the rest, they come to work every day. And I'm so grateful for that. Even during the pandemic, all of my staff were here. I'm like, I still have too many staff members, but I didn't want to not let them come because they wanted to come. And I knew I was going to need them at the end. You know what I mean? Like when all this was over or whatever happened. So I was still trying to accommodate them. And I thank God for the Health Care Act, all the other little incentives that they did give us to help accommodate my staff because I couldn't stop them from coming in. So I was grateful for that. So that's all I want to say. But yeah, I do a lot for my staff, and we're like a family oriented center where we all know exactly what's going on with each other. So we try to help each other too.
I think that is a blessing and a good problem to have. I don't hear very many people these days saying that they are over, that they have more staff than what they need. And so it says to me that you're doing something right. You're able to maintain and retain these people. And so to your point about tapping into, the 50 and older population, I think that's the missed opportunity as well. Many of those people in that arena potentially, may not be interested in an 8 to 5, but to be able to do a part-time that may be willing to do a 3 to 6 or something like in the afternoon or 2 to 6. So just like I said, being very creative with our strategies and tapping into non-traditional, populations. I know that, we want physical ability. And so I think there's a benefit in having a mix. We want people who can match the energy of the children. And at the same time, we need those nurturers and those caregivers. And so the balance of the both is like a wonderful place to be. So thanks for sharing and kudos to you for being able to retain and maintain that staff.
I'm looking in the chat box and it says, November, we're starting a Speak Life Challenge for all staff, parents, and children to decrease negative and change atmosphere in centers. One center likes to do random National Day celebrations. I love that too. You can look it up every morning, like what's the National Day? Is it Taco Day? Is it Cookie Day? Chocolate Ice Cream Day. We bought everyone a chocolate frosty from Wendy's. We also do staff booze for Halloween, where we pick random staff people to surprise. Somebody else said they celebrate each other's birthdays and they have a day where it's all about them. And lots of people said how blessed Francis is to have great staff.
Agreed.
Another one says they have positive board for each other. Celebrating our 10th year anniversary tonight. I'm taking my staff to dinner at Bonefish. Ooh, and also gifting them for all that they do. We're having a catered lunch to show staff appreciation. So sounds like a lot of people are doing some great things.
Yes, and so I can encourage you to continue and keep up the good work. some of those are really formal things, which are great if you have the resources and opportunity to do that. And also, remembering the small days, the minimal efforts that may not be the bigger, more cost effective things, but just the value of even some of those small things and acknowledging and recognizing people and creating that sense of school family. One other thing that may be offered as a suggestion, and it's not necessarily giving something to anybody. I got this idea, I can't take credit for it, from another colleague, but they actually create, like in their teacher walkway or the lounges or different spaces, like a school family type deal. And so they have like the family pictures of the teachers and their families. And so kind of like you would have at home, you might have pictures up, but it's like their school family. And so they have intentionally posted up pictures of each staff person, some of them with their mates and their families, some of them just individually, but just kind of the atmosphere, the physical environment of actually kind of looking like a school family, so to speak, too. So those are really some cool ideas. I want to pop over. I have about a 10-minute TED Talk that I want to share with you guys. And then we'll have a little bit of more discussion after that. And then it'll be close to wrap up time. So let me go here and get us started on that. Going a little slow here. All right. There we go. So I'm gonna share this screen. Gotta make sure I share my sound. I always have a struggle with that. No. Hold on, guys. Share sound. There we go. Okay.
With Monday.com WorkOS, you can create, collaborate, and scale without limits.
And I don't pay for ad for YouTube, so bear with me. But you had some really cool stories to share and ideas. I just want to take a pause and see if anybody has any thoughts or reflections from the video.
Yeah, I have a couple, if I could share.
Absolutely.
So I can really relate. The reason being is I'm an assistant administrator at a child care center that's located inside of a homeless shelter. So we are a homeless shelter that it's called the YWCA Family Center. It houses families with children, and the daycare is located in the shelter. So as you can imagine, all of the children that come to us, because we only serve the children in the shelter, are very traumatized from homelessness, for their the backgrounds and environments they grew up in, the things they've seen and gone through. So we knew immediately that we had to have things in place to help these children with their trauma. And we are very much a social emotional based founded child care center. A lot of teachers, they have degrees and they have their classes they take, but in all honesty, they're not truly prepared to handle behaviors that stem from a child's background, their environment, the things they've gone through and, are living through now. So what we had to do is we had to make sure we got the resources to incorporate and implement in our center, such as conscious discipline. That is a big one. It gives us so much, so many resources and help and trainings on, self-regulation, because we understand that children, unless they're safe, unless they feel loved, until then they won't open up to learning or anything else, problem solving. So we need to meet those social emotional needs first before anything else can happen. I mean, it's a lot, and still, even with all the resources that you can get on you know, challenging behaviors, working with children, families, and trauma. You very much so in this field, especially here, they go through, she mentioned compassion fatigue, or yeah, was it compassion? Yeah, compassion fatigue. Yeah, so I never, until a couple days ago, even kind of heard of that. And it surprised me. So I looked into it more, and I'm like, wow, you can actually care so much that you don't care anymore. And I know that kind of don't make sense, but it makes sense to me. Like I cared so much that that I'm just all cared out. And I know people in the medical field feel this, you know, they said a lot because of, you know, their work, especially with the pandemic. A lot of people that care for others are, you know, that compassion fatigue. And so now we've recognized that dealing with compassion fatigue and teachers that have to, you know, work with these children in trauma, meet their needs, we can't lose sight of the teachers and the administrators and everyone that works in the center, you know, about their mental health needs. So, you know, it's definitely all about taking care of the kids first, but we got to remember, unless we're good, those children aren't going to be good because we have nothing to give. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
It absolutely makes a lot of
It's
sense.
so important to have outside agencies or resources. Thank goodness we have a resource through a mental health agency that's the people are on site here in the facility, in the family center. It's what they call the shelter, that are on site for families. So we, you know, it's just so important just to have those mental health resources for the children and for the families. And then, you know, also for the staff. So
absolutely. So having a plan, you know, I think you said going into that because your dynamics were different and you knew that you were going in dealing with the homeless population. Your organization already kind of had some support set up in place. And I think for many of us, that wasn't where our mindset was in opening up these childcare businesses. We know, you know, the job was to care for children, and that's what the bulk of us want to do, and that's why we're in this field. And so now, you know, starting to see and better understand, I saw there's this upcoming training that we'll be offering. It's called "If You Don't Feed the Teachers, They'll Eat the Children." And it really just says pretty much a lot of what we're reinforcing today, because when you are not your best self, you can't show up your best for children. It's just humanly impossible. I believe we do the best that we can, but you can't show up. So I'll do one last sharing of the screen, and these are handouts that are available and accessible to you all through the Whova app, and 4C has access to them. So I'm pretty sure you guys will have an opportunity to receive them. But it is also kind of working with and coming up with a plan for a wellness plan. And I understand that that wasn't essentially, you know, we have to do all of these regulations for childcare and different things, but you need a staff wellness plan to care for your children. And so this is something that is in that app. And I'm not going to give you like the exacts of what you should put on here and what your family is, but being mindful of at least, you know, I would say monthly, probably more often if you're able to, a specific activity and a plan that you have something structured to do with or for your staff or your teachers, and include yourself. You know, I hear some of you all reading through some of the comments that some of you guys are experiencing the same compassion fatigue as the staff. And so, like we said earlier, you can't pour into an empty cup without filling yourself up as well. And so you are included in the staff wellness plan as also. What are you doing to take care of yourself? I highly recommend it. I know that everybody's coming from different geographic regions, but looking into those resources and supports, we have the resource guides for parents and for families. And, you know, we have to show Step Up the resources that we have. And so this may not be something that's required by Step Up or required by anybody, but it is necessary by everybody to also have likewise resources available to to teachers and staff, whether it's the EAP program. Check it into your local resources, free counseling, or, you know, just whatever that looks like in your area. I wish I had a comprehensive statewide list that would include enough for everybody in every region, yet I don't. But I believe that collectively we can work together. There's lots of organizations, whether it's Cincinnati Preschool Promise, Dayton Preschool Promise, 4C for Children, all of these entities who all have like visions of doing well by children. So working collaboratively and collectively to reach out and utilize our community resources? Where are our mental health professionals? She talked about Wellness Wednesdays. Maybe that's something that's consistently planned. One of you all mentioned room service Fridays. So just consistent things. And again, I'm not challenging you to come up with some astronomical budget or take money from here. I know money is tight, you know, for a lot of us. These don't necessarily have to be resources. I'm sorry, these don't necessarily have to come with, you know, financial strain. Check into and utilize your free resources. Utilize each other. Ask for that help. Don't be afraid to Google it. Reach out to your local community action partnerships, your county organizations, your board of health departments. I see commercials and different things that come on. I've not personally checked into it. So again, I'm not saying some of them don't come with a cost or a fee, but what I'm encouraging all of you today to walk away with is an idea for creating a staff wellness plan. I'm not asking you to leave in this next 15 minutes and have this created, obviously, but I will encourage you to utilize the resource that's available to you and becoming mindful. Build that into your processes so that you don't forget. Add that as part of your policy handbooks or wherever you kind of keep your procedural type things, and so that it just doesn't fall by the wayside, because it's really easy to come, you know, to walk away from a training such as this. Yeah, it's a good idea. You go to another training or go back to your site, and life happens, and this, you know, it's just like it gets pushed aside. And so I strongly encourage you all, even if you don't utilize this form exactly the way it's just a draft of something that's thrown out there, but it is important to have a staff wellness plan. Doesn't make us weak. It doesn't make us any less than to say that we need help and we need to care for ourselves, but that is for you all too. Yep, dealing with all the staffing issues, no supports, and no time to get help. You don't time it, you have to make the time. It never feels like it's enough time. It never feels like it's enough time. But if it's important enough to you, you'll make time, you'll build it in, you'll figure it out. I listened to a podcast, a lady called Terry Savoy. She talks about being a cheerleader of dreams. And she actually talked, I'm not an early morning person. I am totally not an early morning person, but in my quest, and I even said this earlier about trying to be more health conscious, and she says she intentionally wakes up 1 hour a day earlier for herself, because that sets the tone. You know, it does make her feel sometimes, until her body got acclimated to it. Yes, a little bit tired, but she couldn't find the time of the day because, again, caring for, she's got a husband, she's got children, she's a, you know, world-renowned podcaster and an entertainer. So she does all of this stuff. And so she was like, I wasn't making time for myself. And so the only time that she could find for herself was creating an extra hour earlier. So instead of getting up and going at 7 o'clock, she gets up at 5 o'clock. She says it gives her time to, you know, exercise, to meditate, her personal routine, exercise, meditate, pray, and I forget what else she says, but that, because she couldn't find the time. So she's like, I had to make the time. I make time for everything and everybody else. I make time for my employer. I make time for my business. I make time for my mate. I make time for my children. I make time for my family. I make time for my friends. I make time for my church. But do I make time for me? Do you make time for you? And it's not about, I can't find it. You have to make it. You have to demand it. You have to respect yourself enough to say, this is important. I am important enough for me to make the time for me. You have to be willing to pour into yourself, or you won't be any good for anybody else. Thoughts, questions, comments, anything? Does a staff wellness plan feel important enough for you to prioritize? Do you think it's worth the time and energy that I'm asking you guys to give? Somebody asked the question and I don't know. Thank you. Yes, it's worth it. Good information. What does everyone include in their EAP? I'm familiar with the Employee Assistance Program in general. Maybe one of you all have a little bit more specifics that you'd like to add, because I can only reference it from a former employer where I work, where we had access to it. So not super familiar. Does anybody else have any additional insight about the EAP program? Or even a resource or contact information that you'd be willing to share with the group? I am willing to take the charge to try to find the contact information. I don't have one on hand, but I will add it into the messenger on Hoover following our session today. So I'm willing to take the charge to find that contact information. You guys will still kind of have to do the legwork for exactly what it is that you're looking for, but I will make sure to add that in the information. Yep, I'll try to capture that and take a picture of this. All right, I just have one other. I am very much a quotes person. I believe in quotes. Sometimes they're good to capture. So I'm going to share one last quote with you all before we close out for today.
And Kawana, I've asked that everybody put their name in the chat box for one last attendance check.
Cool. Okay. So guys, please don't forget to do that. We want to make sure that you all are receiving your Ohio approved credit. So I have boxes everywhere that I can't move. Do you want to be a good teacher? Take care of yourself, whether that means taking a mental health day once a month, leaving at contract time, eating lunch in your classroom, not taking any work home, eating all of your candy stash, walking away from a negative coworker, or crying in your classroom at the end of the day. If you don't care what you do or how you do it, your students need to, wait a minute, I don't care, I'm sorry. I don't care what you do or how you do it, your students need you to be okay. They need you all to be okay. I want you all to be okay. And so whatever that needs to look like for you all, make sure that you're taking care of yourself so that you are able to support your staff and nurture them during these difficult times. So that is all that I have for you all. Please make sure you put your name again in the chat. Sherry needs to make sure that she has that documented so that everybody receives their Ohio credit. I am available for comments, questions, or just more dialogue. We've got like about 8 minutes, but in terms of the formal presentation, I am done. So if you can feel free to jump off, if you want to stay on and chat and dialogue with me for a few more minutes, I am here for it all. But for the rest of you all, have a great day and thank you for joining us. Thank you guys. I'm so happy to see I saw lots of new faces, but I saw some familiar names in the chat too. So it's definitely always good to see my 4C and preschool promise friends. Thanks guys. But like I said, any questions, feel free to stay on and ask me or talk about it with each other. I'm here. Make sure you put your name in there. Yep, I see people popping off. I enjoyed being here. Sherry, is there anything else that you need from me or from the participants while we're popping off? Because I am.
No, I mean, this is absolutely wonderful. There were 50 some participants. So I just have a lot of paperwork to do.
Well, let me know.
Thank you all for helping me.
Yes, if there's anything additional I can do to help, please let me know. I am here.
All right. 50 people was wonderful.
Yeah, I think you have to check into the resources, and I want to be mindful to not give specific local resources because I'm not sure where everybody is from. So somebody asked for specific mental health resources. I know here in Dayton, Samaritan Behavioral Health is an organization. I think we've got to do a better job of creating some resources statewide to be, I wish I had a more concise list to actually be able to say, here are some people in all of the different areas, but I'm willing to take the charge to work on that, and at least get the contact information. And then you guys will still have to do the legwork to call and, find out like what insurance they take or how much money they cost. Because it's some legwork to be done there, but I think it's worth it. I definitely think it's worth it. So, yep, I'm going to be looking that up over lunch break because I have to do things when they're fresh on my mind or they will slip my mind. But I will add that into the to the Hoop. I don't know about that, Terry. That's a little out of my wheelhouse. Someone come in from Greene County ESC, they received $1 million grant from Governor DeWine. Wow, that is amazing. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know all of the resources, but a grant out there to help with those resources, I think that's great. That's great. All right, well, I think if nobody has anything else, can we go ahead and jump off? Guess it's about lunchtime. I gotta go back and look at my Hoover app to see what else is on the agenda for the rest of the day. Agenda.
So I will be keeping this open so I can do my attendance records, but if you all do not have any questions for Kawana, you are free to go. If you put your name in the chat box.
I'll see you soon, Terry. Next Friday, as a matter of fact. I hate that you couldn't talk. I think there was a question for Lisa. Is she still here? Lisa that mentioned about getting the grant from Greene County. Oh, there she is. She's coming. She's here.
Lisa Dawn McMillan wants you to email information to her.
Yes, I screenshotted her email address.
Okay,
in
good.
the chat so that I could have it. Yep, I just did that before. Make sure I got it. Yep. And wildkingdom.com.
Is anybody over there?
I'm still here. Yep, we're still here, Lisa.
Okay, it just dawned on me. I can't figure out, I couldn't see that email, and then I checked my emails. I can send that link to how I got a hold of them if you want. You want me to put it on the screen or send it through an email?
If you want to maybe put it in the chat, and then I'll put it in the message of Hoover,
Okay, let me
unless
see.
you've got a different way.
So what I did, all I did was I Googled Nationwide Children's Hospital Expulsion Prevention Program. And when I Googled that, it came up with a chat explaining their program, and then it explained that they wanted to support people that are in the positions like I am and other caregivers and teachers have. And they understand that we need support for children who are having behavior issues. And so they had like an email reply window that I explained my problem and all my issues that I was having quickly. And then they said that they would guarantee me that someone would get back with me within 48 hours. And there was someone that got a hold of me within 24 hours. It was unbelievable. And Greene County ESC had been, if I understand correctly, had been given $1 million to help people, I believe, in Greene County, Preble County, Montgomery County. I don't know all their counties. But they were given money to send out like behavior specialists to help work with people in, in our industry with these types of problems.
Yeah.
So this person came, she called me, we talked about strategies, which I have an early childhood degree. And when we talked about it, it's like it brought up some things that I had forgotten about, in classroom management and those kinds of things. So that helped refresh my mind, it gave me someone to brainstorm. And then she said, anytime I ever need to talk to her, I can contact her. And then she can give me ideas of things that work for her, for other people. And she said they actually have licensing now through Ohio Department of Education for child behavior specialists nowadays, which was interesting as well. I'm kind of going all different directions.
No, that's helpful. I think the young lady who initially asked is no longer on here, but if you, I can still, get this information to the whole group, and then, it'll be up to everybody individually to kind of check into it on their own, but I will absolutely.
If I had, what is that girl? What is her email? I didn't get it. I didn't see it.
Her name was Ashley Pointer, but I don't know.
Okay, I see it here. I wonder if I can
I don't know
if I can find her on the app and email her.
Oh yeah, that might be an option. I'm not super familiar with the app. I'm trying to still learn it. But it looks like, let me see.
My app wouldn't work, so
let me look
I'm
for
using
Zoom.
Zoom.
Ashley, I think it's just okay. I see her on my end, and it looks like I could send it. I don't know if.
And what's her name again? Ashley.
Ashley Pointer, Pointer.
They don't. Her name's not here.
Yeah, because on mine, well, you said you can get the app to work. I went to messages and.
Well, I can't get live. I can't get live stream, but I got the app. It has attendees' names, but it doesn't have this person's name on it.
Oh, does it have? Do you see a button, a message button, like a little envelope? Do you have that? Do you see message
for the Zoom?
No.
Zoom?
Oh no. It's
not the message one here. Okay.
Yeah, I think I was looking for the message one on Hula.
Let me see if I can find. No. All right. Let me just tell you what I Googled. Let me put it in the chat screen, and then you'll have it. And if that girl wants to get a hold of me.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
I Googled Columbus Nationwide Children's. And they brought me a little kit, and they brought me this little plush doll that kids can, with little Velcro face shapes on it, where we can talk about social emotional feelings and that things, give a lesson to my kids, and a whole package of stuff I haven't even got to look at yet.
Yes, I'm definitely interested in checking that out.
Because a lot of kids who have, I'm a private school, so I do have the ability to tell parents that that their kids' behavior is so bad that I just can't handle that. I'm not trained to handle that, and I don't like to do that, and I've had to do it in the past, but because I was able to get a hold of these people and plus the parents helping me, we're working together to help address this child's issues while they're in preschool, because a lot of times they end up, these behaviors become learned behaviors, and then they get to school and they eventually get expelled from school as time goes back. So,
Okay.
Google Columbus Nationwide Prevention, Expulsion Prevention Program. Yeah. So, and like she said, the lady that came out, the behavior specialist, she just said, just like you were saying, we, the caretakers, the teachers, we need support too in these situations, we need to have other people to talk to about these kinds of problems as well. So, and it felt good to be able to talk to somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it does.
That might have some strategies.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Like, we got to
A
be
listening
willing to
ear.
talk.
Huh?
That's it. Yeah, it's very helpful. It's very helpful to be
is.
able to talk to somebody. Yeah.
It is. It is because, like they were saying, we take those problems home with us, and it wakes us up in the middle of the night because you're worried about these kids. Because we that's why you're in childcare. You love kids. You care about
Exactly.
kids.
And that's just our
So,
human nature. Most of us are nurturers in by nature. And so you
well,
don't leave that at the end of the
maybe,
day.
but not everybody's made that way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I've had many people tell me they're not made that way. That's not the way that they are. But you would think the majority of people who are in childcare are. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's a
Yeah.
calling. It's a
Yeah.
calling. It's not something that you do. Most of us are not in it to be making money. Most of us are in it to make a difference in people's lives.
That is true. That is
So,
true. So, okay,
difference
well, I
in the
will get
situation.
this information
Okay.
over to her. I'm gonna jump on over to try to make sure I get this link that I
Yep.
promised everybody I will look up for EAP before I forget that. But it was really nice.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
looked that up too while you were at that. So yeah, if you can, are you going to email that to people or
Yeah,
that
well,
link?
yeah, the link, I'm hopeful that everybody's able to get it through Hoover, even if they don't have Hoover. If I add it to the link, I'll connect with 4C and find out the best way, because I don't have everybody's email, but I know 4C does. So I will connect
Okay.
and figure out what's the best way to get it to everybody.
Okay, and I will look for it too, because I want to find out about that as well.
Okay. All right. Well, I will
Thank
get it
you.
out here soon. Thank you. Have a good day.
Yep, you too. Bye.
Juana, are you still there? Did you hop off?